Okay, we're recording now, Dustin.
Okay.
Anytime that you're ready.
Thank you very much. My name is Dustin Beadle. I work for a company called the Mohawk Group. Very happy to be here today. I'm going to introduce our newest collection to you, which is called New Vintage. And if you take a look at what we have up here, this is the newest collection. And we have two patterns. If you notice, one of them is a little more complex and a little more intricate. So I'd love to share with you today about our inspiration behind the product and what went into the design process. Our inspiration today for designing the product was craftsmanship. So it's not just the mere creation or manufacture of the product, it's what goes into it, the heart and the soul, the drive for perfection, to put yourself into the product and make it above what it is that you think just on paper the product should be. So for example, if you're familiar with Stradivarius, it's a collection of violins and flutes and harps that were made by Antonio Stradivari back in the 1680s in Venice. And even today, you cannot duplicate that. You can go to Croatia and try to source the timber. You can go and try to use x-rays to take a look at what the consistency or density is of the wood, but there's nothing that replaces a Stradivarius in the hands of a master. Simply nothing. We want to celebrate that, and moreover at Mohawk Group, we want to protect it. We feel that that's a legacy, and that authenticity wants to show through in our products. And I've got to share with you that also resonates with me on a personal level. I'm the son of a carpenter, and I grew up in his wood shop. And I learned about mortise and tenon joints, dovetail joints from the time I was a little boy. What he taught me was sometimes the quality of the craftsmanship is what's underneath instead of what's on the surface. So even today, when I go search for furniture, I reach down and I feel, what joint is that? How well is that made? Did that craftsman put the time, energy, and love and himself into that product, or did he just make it for the superficial? Again, that's something we want to celebrate. We see more and more that it's just a mass consumerist cycle, machine-made products, and we need that as a society. But sometimes we need to take a step back and appreciate what it is that we have. And that's our inspiration. Similarly, a good friend of mine created this collection for us. His name is Chris Stolpen. He lives in New York City, and he's our creative director. Chris was inspired by old tapestries and rugs that he saw on the streets of New York. He'd walk down and he'd see these old relics sitting in a store, and he'd decide that this can be used more and more in our current everyday applications. If you're familiar with something called overdying, you can imagine that you have an old, beautiful red tapestry, and then you take it and you dye it with blue, and now you have a beautiful new purple rug. That's also incorporated into our design. So if you want to take a look at this, for example, you can see that this is an oversaturation of color. It's not what you typically see in a corporate environment. It's directly inspired by the overdying process that Chris discovered on the streets of New York. Like that, for example. We especially like the interplay between the complex and the simple patterns. And again, we have the simple grades as well, but we want to give you something unique and authentic for your office space as well. Something that you could point to, and you could even have a conversation piece. So for example, if it was in your showroom floor, you could talk about that level of authenticity, that level of craftsmanship that goes into your product, and then you could have that conversation with your customer, for example, if it was in the room of the show. Here's another good example. This is a bright blue that he did. Directly inspired this product right here.
This is for the corporate environment, is it?
For the corporate environment, yes, sir. There are many spaces, so let me explain that briefly. You can see that there's a complex pattern and there's a simple pattern. Like I said, my personal preference is the interplay between the two creates a nice balance of both worlds, the yin and the yang. But you could put the more complex one in a public area. That's where the complex pattern is going to hide more of the staining and soiling. Whereas the simple one would be great for a conference room or for an individual office space. Tone it down a little bit and do more knowledge-based type of work.
Or you can mix them both, as you showed me.
Yeah, they're modular, they're planks. So this is a 12 by 36 plank, and you can install them in a variety of different applications. And I'll show you that in a second here. This is what we call herringbone. If you're familiar with herringbone on your suit.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, no.
Yeah, so like I said, there's two patterns. This one I just mentioned is more complex. It's great for good heavy traffic areas because it's going to hide the soiling. We call that one rediscovered. This one we call reawakened. You can see it's a little more corporate now, still modern, but it's playing off that more old school pattern and feel and history and culture. And for a design perspective, we'd say that's somebody who's not looking for pattern but texture, which you hear a lot from designers. I heard that actually just last week in Shanghai. This is a good example to see how it plays off of wood or other LVT applications we can also sell, and it coordinates across. So you don't necessarily have to go wall to wall. You can also go as more of a rug. But to answer your question, it is still just individual pieces that I put together, as it says. Okay.
Okay.
Installation methods. Again, not to get too technical, but herringbone was the one we showed in the photos. You can also install monolithically, which means basically in a straight line, or like bricks in the side of the building, which we call an actual installation. This is important for designers because the feel of the room is going to look a lot different depending on how your eye follows it across the floor. And we actually give you an online tool that you can use to customize the installation method for yourself.
Are any of these more efficient in terms of the amount of carpet you need to use?
No, I would say the overall area is going to be the same. You're really just talking about how it's laid out internally.
Okay. So it's not about money?
Nope. No. And you can still order it by box, so your gross total floor area and your gross order amount's not going to change.
Okay.
That's another good example. This is an LVT product also made by Mohawk, and this is our showroom and merchandise mart. You can see that you can use this rug to delineate different areas. So kind of going back to your previous question on, is this a corporate product? Yes, absolutely, but you need to be careful on the space that it's going into. This is great because you're kind of creating more homely feel, kind of what you have going on out here. But it's still without our greater showroom that, if you were here in Chicago, you would see goes out directly into the front of the room. It's the full width of the room.
Yeah.
Okay. So New Vintage is a product that we're very proud of. I'm personally very proud of it because it shows our design intent, it shows our design vision moving forward. And it'd be our absolute pleasure if you could consider using it in your showrooms or your offices back in Chicago. So thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. Where's it manufactured?
United States, Virginia.
Okay. So if I have a project in Hong Kong, how long does it take me to get it, and how do you support me?
If we have inventory, it's going to be 6 weeks. So we would put it on a vessel going out of either Virginia, or if you need it a little quicker, we could make it go out of Long Beach, depending on what your situation is.
6 weeks from order to delivery to site?
That is correct, if we have it in inventory.
Right, and if we don't?
It could be around 12 weeks.
Okay. And the New Vintage line, is that an inventory product?
Currently, it's based on market demand. So there's some colors, like for example, this gray, maybe a little more commonly used, we're going to have inventory of.
Right.
But if you were going for the more overdyed, the reds or the blues, we may have to work with you. So if you put me a part of your process, we'll work with your designer, we'll work with your general contractor to make sure the solution fits. And if it doesn't, you'll be the first person I call.
Okay. And what about ongoing support? How would I, if I needed more?
Sure. So there's me, I'm here as a local territory manager, and I also specifically handle the strategic accounts within Asia Pacific. I'm backed up by our Vice President of Sales, our Director of International Operations, and then by our customer support staff that are going to be taking care of all the logistics issues. We also have local distribution representation in every country in Asia Pacific, or I should say at least the major ones.
Okay, so I would always have a number and a name.
There's always going to be somebody local to you that you can call.
Great. Okay. Very good. Okay, well, thank you for that, Dustin. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we?
No, that's it. Thank you very much. If you have any further questions, please let me know. We're very proud of this, and we think that you can really use it to set your office apart, and again, give yourself a story to tell your clients as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.